Um, Hello, sir. Am I audible to you?
हाँ ये ठीक है।
Yeah,
ये है।
yeah. Uh, so I welcome you all to this
मोबाईल
session.
वरनं जॉईन केलाय मी.
हाँ सर.
मोबाईल वरनं जॉईन केला आहे.
हो.
हा तर मी फक्त अटेंड करतो, मी बोलणार वगैरे नाही आता. ठीक
बरं
आहे.
बरं. ठीक आहे
प्लीज
सर. Okay sir. So I welcome you all. I welcome our director sir, Dr. Raju Mankar sir, and I thank him for joining this session. I welcome you all for this session on angel investment and VC funding for early stage entrepreneurs. Uh, the speaker of this event is Mr. Gaurav Tatwari. Uh, Gaurav started off with his undergrad. He did his undergrad from COEP Pune. Later on, he has got experience of working with Finvest technologies and financial investment firms. And after that, he moved from his core area to management and did his degree from MDI Gurgaon. And presently, he's the co-founder of Autumn Breeze Films, Autumn Breeze Films, and he's into actually filmmaking. So I welcome you, sir, and I thank you for accepting our invitation to be a part of this session. And I hope to tell you for all the attendees, Gaurav has been a serial entrepreneur. He has got to his credit two or three different startups in different domains. And presently, as we speak, also he is also working on two more startup ideas. And he has got a very extensive experience in terms of VCs. He has actually met and interacted with VCs and uh, given them pitch also. Even I myself have consulted him on various occasions for discussing different ideas. So I hope his session would be very interesting and it would give a very new angle and specifically for chemical engineering, because as far as chemical engineering is concerned, the basic idea remains that all ideas pertaining to chemical engineering are very money intensive. You require a lot of capital investment for making an idea come to reality. So I hope, sir, you would address this particular concern of chemical engineers and technologists. And I again thank you for accepting our invitation to be a part of this session. And over to you, sir. You please you can share your experiences with us. Thank you so much.
Hello, hi everyone. Are you guys able to hear me?
Yes, yes,
Yes, Saurabh. Great, great.
yes.
So first of all, thank you, Saurabh, for the kind introduction. Also, I would like to thank everyone for joining this session on angel investment and VC funding. This basically I have done for early stage entrepreneurs. I would also like to thank LIT as an institute and director sir and Dr. Saurabh Zoglekar for inviting me for this session. So though I am not sure if I would be the right person for talking on this subject, as I haven't raised huge sums of money, but I have definitely raised some. From this process of raising money, I would like to share my experience and I would like to share the learnings with you all guys, and I think which might be useful for the upcoming entrepreneurs. So there are a lot of variables and things that needs to be considered before getting an external funding. Nowadays, you must be reading in newspaper that a lot of companies have raised, say, $100 million, $200 million in Series A, Series B, Series C. But I don't think that is the right approach to build a business. So this fad, I think it has recently come into existence, and I totally disagree with this line of thought. So for one of the greatest example which has defeated this line of thought is a company named as Zerodha. I don't know whether you guys know it or not. It's a brokerage firm based out of Bangalore, started by two co-founders. They have not raised a single money till date, and the present valuation of Zerodha is around $3.3 billion. So it was all bootstrapped by these two co-founders. I would be using some startup jargons and I would be explaining them as well. So basically, bootstrap meaning is like when you put your own money into your company and don't raise external funding. So yeah, so that's it. So yeah, for the just a sec. Yeah. So, anyways, it's very important to understand when your company needs an external funding. It's not necessary that always all the business models need external funding, and sometimes, in my opinion, personally, it's best if you can basically arrange the funds from your friends and family, and don't get into external financing because it comes with a lot of costs. But saying that there are a lot of business models like the present one which I am operating in, Autumn Breeze Films. So these are all capital intensive businesses. So for that you need to raise some amount of fund as well. So coming to the next slide. So in this session, what I would be talking about is, first of all, I would be I would be telling you a bit more about myself. I think Saurabh has given a brief introduction, but I would like to take you through my journey both professionally and personally. Then I would talk on how you can take your idea from being an idea to a business in bullet points. Uh, then we would discuss which form of company registration is best for your business model. So there are five types of company registration that can happen in India, and I would basically it's sort of a legal aspect, but it's very important for the upcoming entrepreneurs to know that. After that, I would take you through basic two funding options and their differences. Subsequently, as a new entrepreneur, what all options you have in terms of fundraising, I'll talk on that as well. In the section angels and VC, I would take you in detail who are these, what is the difference between them, when and how to approach each of them. Okay. So coming to the next point, I would also take you through the dynamics of VC funding, how exactly these people make money, and what is their interest in investing in your startup, and how basically it can create great amount of synergies as well as it can create a great amount of cost and burden for you. So coming to the next point, valuation. Yeah, so I missed this. So I would also be talking on startup financing cycle. So in this, I would be taking you through at what stages, how much amount of capital is raised, and how it is used usually. So this is not a gold standard, but it will give you a fair idea of how the companies operate. Then I would touch upon valuation. This in itself is a huge topic, but I would try and touch the very basic elements of valuation. For those who are interested to learn more about it, there's a free series by Dr. Ashwath Damodaran on YouTube. You can just search, and so it's around 25 lecture series, and it can be a great value add to all the people. Lastly, we'll tell you how you should create your investor database, and we'll share some of the screenshots of the Excel which I had created long time back when I was doing fundraising. Though it's old, but almost all of the companies are still operational and invest in early stage startups. So this is what I would be talking about in the entire lecture. So coming to about me. So I'm an irrational entrepreneur, as Saurabh has said. Basically, I have started many firms. I have failed in a lot of them, but I believe there's always a static friction, and it needs to be overcome by everyone. And so, irrespective of which field you are starting up, or which business, which industry, which sector, which geography, I'm pretty sure that at the end of the day, there are a lot of struggles as an entrepreneur. And if you really don't like what you are doing, I would suggest not to go for it, because eventually you will end up quitting the entire thing. So that's the reason that I use the word irrational. So because if you see from the rational point of view, I have a great opportunity cost and I can join a job with a decent salary, with a stable life. But at the end of the day, if you are an entrepreneur, you will just give everything up. So yeah, the next point is my education. I am an engineer by profession. Basically, I am an engineer from COEP, but as most as we had the trend at that time, so everyone used to do engineering. That's the reason I did it, frankly speaking. And uh, But then I did my MBA. That was because of my choice. I did it from MDI Gurgaon. So have though I have not raised a lot of funds, but have raised cumulative around 10 plus CR, 10 CR plus till date for various ventures of mine. Uh, so I'll just tell you what all I did in terms of experience. So I total have 8 years of experience, of which 4 years I have been working in corporates. So I basically worked in capital markets. I worked in finance strategy, planning, and product. So I was working with derivative desk of Lloyd's TSB UK Bank from Polaris Financial Technology, and I was working with the CFO of Religare Invest for their finance strategy and planning, and to some extent product as well. Coming to the interesting part, 4 years of my work is in various startups. So I started the first one in 2012. So it was chocomates.com. So at that time, you should keep in mind there was no Swiggy, no Zomato. In that environment, we basically started delivering cakes. We started with Pune and we expanded it in 3 cities. So at that time, me and Saurabh were together in Pune. So he helped me a lot in this. So this is about chocomates.com. Then I basically did Crumblebox. So I don't know how many people are tech savvy here, but there was a app known as QuizUp, which was viral a few years back. I think it's still there, but not yet relevant. So what we did is we basically added a money element. So a lot of big startups are doing it right now. So for example, Dream 11, you can say MPL. Uh, what all these people are doing is they are basically adding the money element. Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Gaurav, there
Yeah,
seems to be
sorry.
some issue with the camera. I mean, you can turn it off as well.
I can turn it off. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah. So in Crumblebox, we basically created an app in which two players used to play a quiz with each other and they can earn money. So this is relevant nowadays because of the Dream 11. It has become a huge company, and even MPL is picking up fast. So that's about Crumblebox. So we did it in 2016. So from last 3 years, I have been working, rather 4 years, 3.5 years approximately. I've been working as a co-founder in Autumn Breeze Films. So in this, we basically create feature films and branded content. We have also created an infrastructure, post-production infrastructure in Mumbai. So the maximum fundraising which I have done is done for Autumn Breeze Films, because earlier, frankly speaking, we had to shut Crumblebox because we were unable to raise the funds. But we had a great amount of traction. We got around 20,000 users within 20 days of launch. So it was great, but yeah, we were unable to raise the funds. Coming to the next slide, idea to execution. So say for example, if you have an idea, how do you convert it into a business? So I would take you through a framework which I think is relevant to make you understand the vision and what you are trying to do. So everyone knows you need to create a pitch deck and business plan. I am asking you not to create this because you need to pitch it to some investor. I am asking you to create this because you need to understand what exactly you guys are doing it. So in that, the first thing is, what is the problem you guys are trying to solve? This might seem easy question, but is very important and difficult to find the right answer. Let's consider my latest venture, Autumn Breeze Films. Do you think making films is solving any problem? Already a ton of players are doing it. But the answer for this is our model is quite unique in terms of financing, and for my investors is we basically diversify the risk. So that was the problem which I initially saw in if you think of film investing, mostly everyone thinks that it's a risky investment. uh, yeah, that's true to a certain extent, but that thing can be diversified if you get multiple investors on board, and you can reduce their risk and say they'll get a greater return. So there's a simple rule that more risk is more return. So so that is the thing. You need to find the problem, though it seems easy, but it's not that easy. Coming to the second point, once you have the problem, you need to find the solution. So it many a times what happens is entrepreneurs start with a solution and then go and find a problem. That's an issue. It should not happen that way. So the next point is addressable market. In terms of startup jargon, it is also known as TAM. Or TAM is a short form for total addressable market. So what this means is, as a company, as a product, or as a service, what is the maximum revenue potential available for you? So higher the TAM, better it is both for entrepreneur and investors. Both better it is for both entrepreneur and investor. Okay, then comes USP and competition mapping. Whatever is your solution, how it is different than what exactly is there right now in the market. Also, there is a term known as entry barrier. It means how much trouble a company will go through to enter a particular market. For example, say anyone can create a website like chocomates.com, as not much funding is required to get it started. But say on the other hand, say consider Autumn Breeze Films. The entry barrier there is higher because you need to have a lot of connections and it's a capital intensive business. So you need to have funds as well on hand. So yeah, that's about it. The next point is revenue model. So this is very important. How will you make money? It might be a projection, like Flipkart made a lot of losses initially, but they had the plan to make it profitable once they grow. So this exercise will help you build your vision as well as not only. So basically, this exercise will help you build your vision. Usually, VCs and angels prefer high growth companies, but it's not necessary that you need to uh, get into a sector which is high growth. So coming to the next point, scalability. So there are some models which are scalable. There are some which are not. For example, say let's take my company. So say if in my company I decide only to make the films which my internal team of writers write, then I would be able to make say 1 or 2 films per year. But on the other hand, say if I accept the scripts from other writers as well, or in the startup world, it is known as crowdsourcing. So then I can easily scale it to 4 to 5 films per year. But again, this should be decided by the entrepreneur, which is best for his business and his philosophy. But from the investment perspective, it's always best to show the investor that your model is scalable. So once that is done, so you create a concept known as MVP. MVP is a minimum viable product. This is sort of a demo and test it on users. Say, I told you in my Crumble box, what we had created was a MVP. So it had all the basic features. We had the product roadmap, but it had all the basic features. So on that, we got around 20,000 users. So that's great amount of traction. So this is known as traction. So the number of users you are getting on your MVP. So this basically gives you the validation as well. So what if your idea is working or not? Yeah. Coming to the next important point, the team. So this is one of the, I would say this is the only important thing the initial early stage investors consider, because you just have an idea, everything is in your mind. It's just who are you, what you stand for, that makes a difference while fundraising. And lastly, in the deck, there's an investor corner. So in this, you basically ask for the total fund requirement, what is there in it for the investor, etc. So, as I told you earlier, this exercise will help you get a clarity on the idea and give a clear picture of how to go about executing it. Though most of us know all this, but we usually don't do it and directly go into execution. I have done it so many times. So, coming to the next point, so what is the order which I basically feel like will help you in a successful execution? So the first one is to build a great team. This is very important. Usually we start with some of the friends or family members, but that should not be done. Ideally, your co-founder should have the complementary skills. For example, in my firm, I handle business angles. I handle valuation. I handle fundraising, but that's not the core business of a film or a production house. My brother, who is another co-founder, he basically is an actor, and he takes care of the creative angles and the connections in the industry. So luckily we are brother, and luckily we I got a complementary partner. So that's very important. So the second, as I discussed earlier, is MVP. You should make an MVP. Then you should see if it's a market fit. What does that mean? So you create an MVP and you understand that you are not getting enough amount of traction. So you reiterate the model and see if anything is working for you. So that is a product market fit. Once you have done all these three things, then I think it's a good idea to go for fundraising. Though it might differ for every business model, but usually you will end up giving less amount of money. Basically, you will end up giving less amount of the company to the investor. So again, after you basically this is an ongoing process, the product iterations and pivoting the business model. As you grow, you will understand that there are different angles to it, and you need to continuously reiterate and basically optimize the best whatever your objective is. So then again, as you grow, as you go to Series B, as you grow, then you start building systems and processes. Eventually, you make a big corporate out of it and do subsequent round of fundings. So this is what the basic idea to execution, and this is what I think is the way you should go about it. But again, this is not a gold standard. This is all from my experience. You might do it entirely differently, and you might be successful in it. So it depends. Coming to the next slide, the legal aspects. So as I told you earlier, in India, there are 5 ways you can register your company. So these 5 ways are sole proprietorship, then partnership, then there's a OPC. What is OPC is one person company. Then there's a LLP, which is a limited liability partnership. Then there's a private limited partnership. Then there is a private limited company, and lastly there's a public limited, which basically shares and everything is exchanged. Basically, you are listed on an exchange, so that is a public company. So what is the difference between all these, and how is it relevant for a new person like me or like you to register which company is relevant? So, for example, in sole proprietorship, the company and the owner are similar entity, so they are not treated as different. So the good part of this is you have very less compliances in terms of doing it with MCA or CA compliances. But the problem here is, say for example, you register a sole proprietor company and you build a big factory, and eventually say there's a fire and a lot of people die. So what happens is, if it's found that it was your mistake because of which the fire erupted, then the court might order to give a huge sum of money to the families of those who have died. In that, if you are a sole proprietor company, what will happen is your personal assets will be seized. So what will happen is, basically, if you have house, you have car, then the law can basically confiscate everything and liquidate it and give it to the partner, give it to the family members. So this is what is liability is. So in this, it is unlimited liability. So the other company is, so say if we need to make a company with 2 3 people, then you can enter into a partnership deal. So again, in this, the partners and director can be multiple. The problem here is again the same. The liability is unlimited. Again, there are relatively more compliances as compared to sole proprietorship, but they are still few. Now, OPC, LLP, and private limited are considered as companies, and they are basically controlled by MCA, Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So again, so in this OPC, you can basically give the shares, and you are the single person. So in this, there is only one person as a director or a partner. The liability is limited, compliances are moderate. So what this means is, so say for example, if I started as a OPC, I invested 1 CR of my own money, and build a factory, the same incident happened, a lot of people died, then I am liable to give only 1 CR of the money which I had invested. So that is known as paid up capital. So that's a different discussion, but the liability becomes limited. So this is great for capital intensive and risky businesses, which is also the case of my latest production house. In that, there are a lot of legal cases that might erupt because of the copyright violations. So I prefer a limited liability. Coming to the next, limited liability partnership or LLP. Again, in this, the liability is limited. You have moderate amount of compliances, and you can have as many partners as required, but minimum 2 people are required. Then there's a private limited company. So if you need to raise huge amounts of funds, this is the one you should go for. In that, you can have multiple directors, you can issue multiple shares, you can increase the paid up capital as subsequent round of funding happens. So, for example, angels might be okay for an LLP, but usually VC firms are they are hell bent on creating a private limited company. So the problem with private limited is they have huge amount of compliances. And lastly, public limited, which is not relevant to us. Coming to the next slide, funding options. So basically, if you see at the end, fundamentally, there are only two options. One is the debt and one is equity. What that debt means is, in layman's term, it's a loan. You take the money, you need to return it with some interest. I don't care what you guys do with it. Okay. On the other hand, there is equity. It is known as shares. Why it is share is basically you get a part of the company. So that is what you share. So that's why shares. You take money, you make the investor as a partner. So in debt, investor doesn't care what you do. He just needs the money on schedule. So for example, if you take a loan, you need to give the EMI on first of every month. You need to give it. I don't care how. But on the other hand, as an investor in the equity option, he is interested in the entire company business, how you guys are running it, because he will end up making money when the company grows. And there is no there can be a dividend option, but usually that's very small. Uh, the investor's interest is to make it big. So the investors in debt are banks, SMEs, most of you knows. And investor in equity are HNIs. HNIs are basically high net worth individuals, angel funds, venture capitals, retail investors. I'll get into this in later. So few important factors to consider while taking a debt. So you should basically make money on every sale. So this is true for traditional businesses, and that's the reason they take a lot of debt. So say for example, if I make shirt for 100 rupees and give it for say 200 rupees, I'm making 100 rupee net profit. So that when this type of model is there, then it's a good idea to go for debt instead of equity. The reason is you would not end up giving the part of the company to someone, and you can grow. Also, the margin should be more than interest. It should not happen that you are paying 18% of interest and your margins are 15%, annual margins. So you will end up. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, मैंने 100 रुपए का डेट लिया, मेरे को 118 रुपया देना है, पर मैंने 115 ही कमाया. So I'm making a net loss of 3 rupees. This should not happen. The best part about debt is there is no interference. You can run your business as you want. On the other hand, in the equity, when the factors that needs to be considered are, if you need to say build a factory, build a movie which is having a heavy investment requirement, and you cannot raise it either by debt, or you need to lower your risk profile. So that is the reason when you go for equity. Also, there are companies like Flipkart. You must have read, I don't know, that initially for a lot many years everyone was in loss. They end up being profitable after a lot of years. So if that is the same scenario, you cannot service the debt. So it's better idea to go for equity. So these are the two basic funding options, but how is it relevant to me as a new entrepreneur? So I think these are the following options you have as a new entrepreneur if you want to raise money. The first one is, and the most critical, is the personal saving. So say for example, tomorrow Saurabh comes to me and says that I need to do this business. I have an idea and we need to invest some money. So the first question I would ask is how much money you are basically putting from your pocket. It's not the reason that basically I as an investor need to judge are you willing to put the extra mile from your own pocket, and do you believe in the idea. That's the reason this is one of the important key factors when you go for an investment round. Then there's family and friends who trust on you, so that's known. Angels. So I would be talking on angels in the next slides. Then there are venture capital firms. Then the other option is equity crowdfunding. Nowadays, a lot of websites have come in which basically you can take money from a lot of retail investors, though it's a gray area right now, legally speaking, in India. But there are some websites who are doing it. Then there are strategic partners. So, for example, if you are creating a brand, might be some chemical, I don't know, but if it's aligned with Godrej or some big company, they might end up investing in you because it complements their own business, core business. Now there are incubators and accelerators. So the incubators, if you see, is like the same thing. If the new baby is there who needs the care, so similarly the idea is like, if you have an idea, it's like a baby, you need to care and grow it unless and until it can take care of itself. So that's the thing which incubators do. So they basically will help you with the connections. They will give you some seed money. They might give you some space to work, and there are other benefits. So that's incubator and accelerator. So these are the funding options in terms of equity for a new startup. Yeah, coming to angels. So who are angels? These are high net worth individuals who are usually successful entrepreneurs who have sold their own companies. They might be celebrities, they might be sport person. So their interest is uh, to first of all get a great return. That's goes without saying. But they also had been in the same position long time back, and they want to support the upcoming entrepreneurs. Uh, so three things to look at in them, other than the amount they are giving, uh, I think are first is the contacts they are bringing on table. So if you have the contacts, you can raise money, you can get good sales receipts, and a lot of things that can happen. Then the experience which they are bringing. So if you are operating in a particular industry, are they experienced enough in that industry? They have enough connects there or not? And the last one is the time they are willing to spend, because all these people are rich, and that's the reason they have less amount of time. And it's a good idea if they are committing some amount of time for your particular company. So these are the three things I think that needs to be considered. Now, where to find them? That's a great question. So they would not, you would not be able to do a cold call to them, and that's the worst idea to do that. So you should not put on a LinkedIn message that I need some money. This is my idea. That's the worst thing to do. So there are group of networks. So eventually what happens is all these people meet and they basically create a network or a group, and in that there are some investment advisors or managers who basically invest in the companies, and they invest through them. So in India there are a lot of networks like Indian Angel Network. Then there's Mumbai Angels, which is led by Sachin Karnik. Then there's Lead Angels, which is led by one of my professors of MDI, Mr. Dhruvnath. And yeah, so this is one way to find them. The another are recently some websites have come like AngelList, Seed Invest, Crunchbase, etc. So Crunchbase becomes relevant because Crunchbase tells you uh, how much money was raised by which company. If you just search, for example, any company, it will just give you frequent round and who were the investors in it. So you get an idea. So then lastly, there are incubators. There are incubators of say IIT Bombay has an incubator. Then 500 startups is there. GSF accelerator. There are many other incubators as well. So usually, as these angels invest in very high growth companies, and it's a very risky investment, so they expect a very high IRR. So IRR is basically internal rate of return. It's just if I am investing 100 rupees, they expect to give me 500 back because I am investing in a risky thing. So yeah, so the best way to approach these angels is via strong referral. So what happens is there are companies who have already raised the money from these people, So say for example, if I have raised a money from some angel and you as a new startup, it's better idea to go via me than directly going there. So dynamics of early stage funding. So this is raw statistics, but this is true. Over 98% of the startups fail. Less than 0.01% make unicorns. 0.01% make unicorns. So how these guys make money? So everything is about statistics, as you must be knowing in case of insurance. So this is similar. So these type of investors don't see the numbers at all, because say initially you don't have numbers to show. You might be 3 years, 3 month old, 6 month old company. So you don't have a sales track record. You don't have anything else. You don't have a lot of clients. They basically get the idea what you are trying to do. So what they judge, according to me, is the team and their pedigree. So what they have done in earlier, are they committed enough? Are they coming from a good educational background? Whatever. Then the idea and its potential. It's the second part. The third part is the scalability and TAM. Fourth is USP. So these are that's about it. So say an early stage investor has invested in 10 startups. He knows most of them, rather 9 out of 10 will fail. But one which succeeds provides him the returns as well as the money tanked by the remaining 9 startups. So this is the this is the basic premise in which these guys work and earn money. So coming to the venture capital firms. So how is it different from angels? Unlike angels, these people are professionally managed investment firms. So they do not invest their own money, but but they raise the money from institutional investors. Okay. So they have themselves internally to report to the people from those they have raised the fund. So for example, if I have a VC firm, I might end up raising money from say LIC of India and invest. So say for around 10%. So LIC is happy giving me a money, and I invest in a risky asset and give them a better return. So basically, they are answerable to the people who from whom these guys have got the money. So how is it? But why is it relevant to me? So basically, these are managers who basically manage this, and their fees are like fixed plus profit based. So they have a less component of the fixed, but they have huge component of the profit based investment, which basically they invest in. So they have a philosophy of investing. Usually they are industry focused, sometimes geography focused, sometimes some funds are only for women, sometimes they are stage focused, that I would invest in say only early stage, at pre-stage, pre-seed stage and all that. So before approaching any VC firm, I think you should do your research if the VC firm you are approaching is even relevant to your business model. That you can find out through their website or the portfolio companies which they have already invested in it. So again, dynamics of VC funding, how these guys make money. So these guys usually don't do venture debt. They are usually in equities or share of the company. So for example, this is a crude example. In say for example, there's a company company with a valuation of 10 CR in 2018, and say you are an investor and you had invested in 2018. So basically, as 10% you are holding, so you might have invested around a CR, 1 CR. So what happens is over the years, as the company grows, this pie grows. Though the share remains the same, the company valuation grows. And if it say, for example, in 2020, when the company becomes of 100 CR, then your 10% becomes 10 CR. So you make a return of whatever the IRR is from 1 CR to 10 CR within a span of 3 years. So this is how the dynamics of VC work. So coming to this, this is again the same thing which I have just told. So what happens is, say for example, capital investment is 100 million. Uh, in that, there are some companies who basically tank. They don't give a single amount of money back. So they are known as strikeouts. So what happens is, say I invested in 100 million in say 10 startups. Out of them, few startups gave me nothing. So they are known as strikeouts. Then there's a word known as singles. So what singles means is they say I invested X amount of money in a startup and I got say 1x or near about 0.9x. So I got the money back. So these are known as singles. Then there's a double where you get basically 2x, 3x of the return. But the most amount of money which these guys make is from home runs. So if you see, say home runs is like you get a huge amount of return. So for example, you might have invested in say Swiggy long time back, and you might have invested a CR. Now the same amount of share has might be around say value of 200 CR. You don't know. So these are known as home runs. So this is the philosophy for VC where, and these guys are always looking for the home runs. So that's the reason the scalability, the TAM, the team, that becomes an important. So coming to the next slide, startup financing cycle.